Testing. Better? I do not mess with the mute or anything else. I turn it on, let it go. Sometimes people make adjustments. But we do need to keep some folks in our prayers. Tommy Walliver, Tim West, Julie Dolan. Julie was here Wednesday night. That was good to see. Pat and Timmy Thomas, Karen Sims' mother, Sister Knox, Georgia Hancock. Brother Ed, do you know anything about Georgia Hancock?
Yeah, I'll make an announcement later.
Okay. All right, let's see who else we need to keep in our prayers. Susan Segrist, Phil Redmond, Charles Mercer, and there are others that we need to keep in our prayers. Have I overlooked somebody we need to mention? Yes, sir.
Just mention me and my leg wounds.
So tell me about your leg wound. How's it coming?
Well, it's not so good now.
Oh.
It didn't improve any this last time I went down to the hospital.
Uh-huh.
The wound cared. So anyway, just keep me in the prayers that it'll turn around and start healing again.
Yeah, I hope so.
I think they put the wrong kind of medicine in there. It
Uh.
didn't do too good. So.
I'm sorry you're going through that. I really, really am.
No, it started out by scratches.
Scratches.
Some scratches.
Be careful about the scratches. Never know.
Do a debris pile on limbs or thorns or whatever and scratches.
Brother Steve, would you lead us in prayer, please?
Dear kind and loving Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this opportunity to be with each other and to worship you this morning. We ask you this morning a special prayer on those that are sick of our congregation, Tim West and Jordan Hancock especially, those that are spiritually sick, those that are not here or unable to be here. We ask that you would bless each one in this congregation. We ask you to bless us with love in our hearts for each other, Father. We ask you to bless the policemen in the cities that have unrest this morning. We ask your protection and care for them as they try to protect the citizens of this country. We ask you to bless this worship service today. Help us to keep our minds always on you. And we ask you to help us to do your will always. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Okay, we have covered several lessons so far. We talked about the church having a great purpose, and we want to emphasize the church must keep the purpose in mind at all times, or it can lose direction and become sleepy. Does that make sense? All right, next, the church is great when we have unity. Behold, how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. Then we talked about the preacher, then we talked about elders, and today we're going to talk about the membership. We mentioned the fact that the elders have a responsibility or have responsibilities toward the members. One of them, of course, is to lead. Another one is to communicate. Another one is to correct, admonish, to inform, the things of this nature. Another one is to edify, to teach the members things that they need. And sometimes, as Peter pointed out, we need to be reminded of things we already know. And because we can lose some details, some facts about things that are happening or that we need to know about Christianity and how to be a Christian. And so we need to be reminded of things. And so the elders have a process in which they do that in Bible class and other means in which that we can be edified. What thoughts do you have? Okay, let me see if I can make this thing work. This is number 6. Responsibility or responsibility to the shepherd. What are, I should use responsibilities instead of responsibility. The responsibilities of the congregation toward the elders of the church. So let's see, what are some of those responsibilities? If I can back up. Someone read 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verses 12 and 13 for me. And we beseech you, brethren, to, what's the next word there? Know them which labor or work among you, and are over you in the Lord, and admonish you, and to esteem them very highly in love for their work's sake, and be at peace among yourselves. The word know, what does it mean? To know those who are over you, who are ruling over you, who guiding you. What does that word know mean? Yes, ma'am.
Mine says recognize, but I think that means give the credence to, realize they are over you for a purpose and listen to them.
Okay, that's good. Any other thoughts about what that word know means? By the way, the word recognize is used in some translations, by the way, and that is not a bad translation for that. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Know that they are scripturally qualified
Okay. How would you know that?
by knowing what the Bible says about what an elder should have, should
Mm-hmm. Have you ever heard the saying is, I thought I knew that person? What does that mean? I thought I knew that person.
type of moral compass they use, what logic they use to make decisions, just you thought you knew better than what they were acting like or what decisions they were making.
So involved in this is to know what kind of character have. To know someone is not just to know their name. Okay? You can know a person's name without knowing the person, right? And so he said that we need to know. I like that word very well in this context, saying you got to know what makes this person tick. Why does he act the way that he acts? Why is he saying the things he's saying? Why is he teaching what he's teaching? What is he basing his faith and in his position on when it comes to biblical things? The only way we can know that is to know the person. To get to know the person means you have to what? I'm sorry? Spend time with them. That's right. Yes, sir.
Well, it works both ways.
Correct.
Sometimes you think you know them, and then they do something to distract from that, to change that. Opposite way, personalities are different, and sometimes it takes a while for you really to get to know that person, depending on what's happening in different situations.
And that's, you hit a vital point right there. Is that every person has a different personality. They're not the same. Okay? So, not only that, every person in the congregation has a different personality. So when you get all the personalities together, they're going to always agree, right?
To know someone also, the New King James says, recognize.
Okay? Yes, that's right. Recognize. I think we mentioned that just a few moments ago. I might have missed it. Okay, where was I? No. Yes, ma'am.
I think the
they are, but to agree that they are the ones who are in charge, like recognize that
That they are?
that they're the leadership. In any organization, you have a leadership, right? The company, agency, church, you have leadership, and you need to recognize who it is that's actually in authority.
That's a good point. Very good point. All right. Recognize who the elders are. Yes, sir.
Understanding the person for what they do and how they do it.
Okay.
Understanding the person to, know what they do, how they do it, why they do it.
Okay. What other thoughts do you have? Sir.
Well, even in a shepherd over sheep, another shepherd comes in, and those sheep won't follow that shepherd because they don't know that shepherd. And the shepherd that is truly their shepherd knows them by name, and he calls them, and those sheep follow that shepherd because he knows them and they know him.
That's exactly what John 10 teaches, doesn't it? That the sheep knows the voice of the leader, of the shepherd. They hear, they do. And like Brother Frank said just a few moments ago, it's not only that the sheep know the elders must know the sheep. Okay? And sometimes sheep can stray away, and the elders have responsibility of trying to bring the sheep back into the fold. Good thoughts. Anything else? Yes, ma'am. Wait till he gets there.
I think sometimes, I believe it says somewhere an elder has got to be able to teach. And I think sometime I've been in congregations and they just look at those who are older, who maybe are faithful, they come. And, but an elder is supposed to be able to teach and preach. I think that's part of the qualifications too.
Well, it does say it's apt to teach. I think here for Monroe, all the elders are able to teach and to preach. I think I've seen all of them do that, here. Of course, I didn't see myself. I was, but all the elders, sir. You did. Okay. Thanks for telling me. Okay, but I think we meet that one pretty well. I do. Okay, any other thoughts? Yes, ma'am.
On the subject of getting to know people, I think this church, with our care groups, are one way that we can do that. It's not stressful for anybody, and we are at the time that we don't go to each other's houses anymore to get to know people. And I know for Frank and I, when we came, 6 years ago, we had been visiting off and on. But just meeting with the care groups, around the table, we got to know people. And that was so beneficial.
It is.
So I think this care group is one way to get to know people.
Care groups are very, very essential to the work of the church. It really, really is. I like care groups, like to be with the care groups, but I think for me, notice what I'm about to say, the most effective way is when I go to somebody's house and sit down and drink a cup of coffee with them. No. So, yes, ma'am.
I was listening to comedians say back in the day when someone would pull up at your house, everybody was so excited.
Yeah.
And now, when someone pulls up, everybody ducks down.
Don't answer the
Be
door.
quiet, yeah.
Don't pull on the curtain. Yeah, that's good. But basically, it's true. We just we've gotten.
I think it's harder to get to know people because of that. There's used to, we would go to people's houses and have meals and get to game nights, and now it's.
And you didn't even have to. And you didn't even have to get an appointment. You just showed up. Yes, ma'am.
Part of that seems like it was natural. With the internet going on and all the porn on there is a lot more bad people, perverts. So women really do have to be careful with their children. And when you learn little up, avoid people. It's going to impact everybody.
Well, what we're all saying here is true, but I think there's another thing that's kind of made this materialize in the way that we're kind of self-sufficient, independent, and don't need anyone, is we've had a lot of advertisements been fed in our minds for the last 20 years that you deserve this and you don't need to do this and you don't, listen, we need to get back to biblical thinking of how to do things, okay? And I realize there's some bad people out there. We need to watch out for bad people, but we can't become so suspicious of even the brethren that we can't visit one another, talk with one another, meet with one another. That can run into some difficulty in our relationships with the church and one another.
I didn't mean that it was right. I just mean that was a reason for it.
Oh, I understand. No problem. I wouldn't say you're wrong. I was just saying some of the reasons that might have caused this to have what we have. All right. Any other thoughts? All right. Let's move on. Second, the congregation is to esteem them, I should put elders or shepherds there, exceeding highly in love. What does the word esteem mean?
To hold them up.
Hold them up. What's another word or phrase? How about honor or respect? Would that fit in that category? And I think that sometimes we have so many things that happen outside the church that hurts leadership, good leaders. I don't care what group you want to talk about, they're good leaders and all of it. And everybody gets hurt when you get down on one or two and they say all kinds about it and just label, brand everybody across the brand. And then that says, like say something bad about one elder, and that gets out and it goes around and people don't respect them and say things that they should because of bad communication. Yes, ma'am.
I think as congregation, we have to be good. I mean, do our best not to give them a hard time. Respect their position. If you have something you want to discuss, that's fine. But people seem to want to be contentious right away.
Can be. Now, that's something I meant to say in the beginning of the lesson. Go ahead.
You mentioned three terms there, and then was also mentioned respect. And I like the term respect because you have to earn the respect.
Mm-hmm.
You don't esteem them just because of the position.
Mm-hmm.
You don't honor just because of the position.
Mm-hmm.
You have to earn the respect. And so I think that's a better term both ways.
Good way. Good thought. Here's the thing that we have to keep in mind. Whether we are a Christian or not a Christian, whether we're a young adult or older adult, we all have feelings. We all can be happy, we all can be sad, we all can be angry, all these emotions that we all have work within the congregation. Sometimes out of control, sometimes within control. Some going in the wrong direction, some going in the right direction. And it is up to us as members of the church to help each other to get on the right control of our feelings, instead of saying things and doing things that's going to hurt other people, that we're going to do things to uplift. You know what the easiest thing in the world to do? Destroy something. You know what the hardest thing to do is? Build something. If we keep our focus on building, that will help the elders to be able to do their job. They won't be walking in a room and doing that. You know, when the kid walks in the room and they duck like that, means mom and dad go back to hit them and they think they're going to get hit. Well, elders can walk in the room and duck too because they're afraid they're going to get hit with something, you know. So we don't want to be ducking. We want to be able to meet one another, knowing that everything that you hear out of a person is always negative. We don't need negative things in life. We need uplifting. We need encouragement. What other thoughts do you have? All right. Third, the congregation are to imitate the faith of the elders. Let's turn to Hebrews 13:17. Anyone have it?
Said 17.
Yes, ma'am.
Obey those who rule over you, and be submissive, for they watch out for your souls, and those who must give account. Let them do so with joy and not grief, for that would be unprofitable for you.
Read verse 7, if you don't mind.
Remember those who rule over you, who have spoken the word of God to you, whose faith follow, considering the outcome of their conduct.
Okay, he's saying, number one, obey them, submit to them. Number two, he says that we are to imitate their faith. Now, didn't say just any kind of faith, okay? Not anything they're doing, but consider the outcome, okay? Look at the results. If the results are what the Bible teaches, then that's the kind of a person or example that we should follow. And elders always should put their best foot forward in trying to be good examples to the people that are to be examples in life. What's your thought? Is that easy to do? You can? Good. All right, imitate. What does that word mean? Copycat. Okay, that's good. All right, let's see what else we have here. Well, if I can get my buttons going here. Fourth, elders who rule well to be worthy of double honor.
What does that mean?
I think we need to read a little more there in that context. Let me open up my Biblos. All right, I'm going to start reading at verse 17. And I'm going to read through really we need to go through 19, but I'm going to go through 18. Let the elders who rule well be counted worthy of double honor, especially those who labor in the word and doctrine. For, what does that for mean? Because, basically, all right. Because, he says, the scripture says, you shall not muzzle the ox while treading out the corn, or treads out the corn, and the labor is worthy of his wages. What is that saying?
It's okay to pay an elder.
That's exactly what it means. In fact, the same principle is used about preachers in 1 Corinthians chapter 9, if I remember correctly. Same thing, he was saying he had the right to be paid of preaching the gospel. And he gave about 4 arguments in chapter 9 showing that, and one of them is this very argument about elders being paid, working in among the congregation.
Are you giving us a pitch?
I am. I am. Yes, sir.
Well, that certainly appeals to me. But we really missed the one that one doesn't bother me a whole lot. We missed the one that you have to think about back in verse 17. We didn't talk about. that elders have to give an account.
Yes.
And that, I wonder what will happen with that double honor when we have to give an account.
That's on the judgment day.
Amen.
That's correct. And that's a very good point. That's Hebrews 13 and verse 17, 7 and 17. Yes, and that's a biggie. And I think that bothers most people who become elders, is that they're going to have to give an account on the day of judgment for the people that they are to be an example. And if they don't do anything about people who are wrong and causing problems and not doing their family right and doing the community right, doing the boss right or whatever, and they know about it and they do nothing, then I think there's going to be, if I'm reading the Bible correctly, it's going to be a bad judgment day. What do you think? So if the elder comes and said, look, I need to talk to you about something. And I understand this is going on, and what's happening? We need to see if we can correct this if we can. Now, most people, if you go to them and they're doing something wrong with the right attitude and right tone, they're willing to listen, okay? Just like somebody that died recently here. I went to them and to the house and sat down and talked to them. I said, look, I heard this is going on. Is that? Yeah. I said, I told them, I said, you cannot continue to do this. You need to make this right. And here's the attitude. You're right, and I'm going to. I appreciate that person because of his attitude. He realized that he was wrong and did not make an excuse or justify anything. He made it right. And that's the attitude that we have to do, is that we have to make things right when we're wrong. Not always easy. Yes, ma'am.
We're called to be in the world, but not of the world. And a lot of times it creeps in on you without you even knowing it. And all of a sudden you find out that you're stuck being like the world is. You got to be careful.
Yes. Influence has a big thing. It works secretly. It's got a hold of you before you know it. And then we try, somebody comes to us and talks to us about it, then it can get it. But you're right, Brother Frank. We do. We need to be careful about how do we do. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
To me, that, when not just an elder, but anybody that sees somebody that's got a problem, that they would approach that person and talk to them.
Well,
That shows love that that person has for the other person, and the fact that they're willing to put their friendship at risk to approach them to try to get them back in the right relationship with God.
yeah. Very good. Yes, sir.
Take somebody with you.
Well, the first time you don't. The first time you go and talk to him alone, if I read Matthew 18, is that correct? And then if they don't hear you, then you take 2 or 3 with you, that every word may be established, which sometimes is very, very important. But I have found that usually when you take the first step in the right attitude, problems or difficulty of the sin can be resolved. Sometimes people may be a little stubborn, and if that happens, you take somebody with you or a couple of people with you to establish it, to prove that he's not trying to stir up something, and that you talk with them. Usually that takes care of it. Sometimes it takes it to the 3rd step. But all through this, if it's headed to the direction that you're going to have to do correction by the church needs to be informed what steps have been taken before they are done. Yes, sir.
I think we also have to remember that the elders are not judges.
No.
We are only to listen to what we're told by our congregation, and if they tell us something, that we have to believe what they tell us unless we have otherwise evidence. We leave the final judgment to God.
Okay. Well, we got that all settled. Let's move on to the next one. How about number 5? There it is. Wait a minute. How can elders rule well if the members do not obey? Is that a fair question? Somebody, the elder said, here's what we need to do, brethren, and we're going to do such and such here. After getting the consensus of everybody, we made this decision, so I don't care. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to support the mission work that we're doing in such and such place, you know. Oh, listen, that's not good, you know. I told you about the tree, right? Y'all remember the tree? Anybody remember the tree? Do I need to tell about the tree again? Okay. Told you about a congregation where they had a big old tree out in the parking lot, and it got in the way. And there's one guy decided he's going to cut that thing down. That's been there ever since I was a kid. Hey, can't cut that down. That's a landmark. And they said, well, they talked about it and talked about it and talked about it. So it was decided, look, we're going to cut the tree down. Next Saturday morning, we're going to cut it down at 7 o'clock. About 7 o'clock, people started driving up, and here's the guy who opposed it with his handsaw, axe, and all of his tools there to cut down the tree. And they said, hey, what are you doing here? He said, listen, when the tree was still up, I opposed it. But once the decision was made, I support it. I think that's the attitude that we should take. I may oppose something before it gets decided. After it's decided, it is the responsibility of the church to support the decision instead of causing divisions about it. What thoughts do you have? I got that from E.L. Whitaker, by the way. I don't know if anybody knows E.L. Whitaker, but he preached about 40 years somewhere in that neighborhood at Mount Arnold Church of Christ up in Memphis, Tennessee. A good friend. Taught me a lot, and I appreciate him a lot about a lot of things. Okay, elders cannot please everyone. That's the thing we have to keep in mind. Be nice if you could, but we can't do it, okay? Fifth, the congregation must submit to the elders. What does submit mean? Respect their decision, okay? We talked about that a little bit, all right? Submit means there's a loving attitude in the congregation to do what needs to be done. No childish response. 1 Corinthians 3, you read that 1 through 3, 4, somewhere along there, you find that there was a congregation of church babies. I mean, a whole bunch of them. And he called them that. In that particular. We don't want to be what they were in 1 Corinthians. We want to grow up. All right, shepherds can be supported financially. We just talked about that just a while ago, and that's in the context of what we were talking about. I want you to go back to 1 Timothy chapter 5 just for a moment. And we probably going to get to this, if I remember correctly. That's it right there. 19, do not receive an accusation against an elder except from 2 or 3 witnesses. What does that mean? Do not receive an accusation against an elder except with 2 or 3 witnesses.
But just if one person has a problem, don't just accept it as fact.
Why not? A lot of times it is. Here's the thing. Yes?
Once 2 or 3 go and have the same information about a thing, chances are it's true and should be dealt with.
Even if it is an elder, it needs to be dealt with. In fact, if I remember correctly, Acts 20:28, that the elders are watch over themselves and over all the flock of which the Holy Spirit gave you oversee. Is that correct? So they got to be looking out. Sometimes the elders can be wrong. And the attitude of an elder is one, if I'm wrong, I'm sorry, let me fix this thing. What do I need to make it right? And move on. Okay? They're human beings. They can make mistakes. And we need to remember that. We're all out to make a mistake. Just correct it and move on. And don't give any history lessons. What I mean by that?
Don't keep bringing up the past.
Exactly right. When it's done, it's over, made right, move on. And don't keep bringing it up, because that's not the thing that we can do or we like people doing to us. We made a mistake, yes. Let's move on. Any thoughts? Yes, ma'am.
The next verse of that too. Those who are sinning rebuke in the presence of all, that the rest may also fear. If an elder is found to be sinning, you are to rebuke them.
Correct.
So,
Yes.
if it's, you know, if it's truly
If it truly is, it's got to be established, because sometimes people, as it was mentioned a while ago, can get a personal thing and start talking and start spreading things that are not correct. That can happen to any and all of us if we're not real careful. The devil knows how to work, and he works well in that particular area.
the rest may fear, that an elder or the members fear regarding the decision they make on who is their elder. Does that go both ways? Does the rest may fear that verse? It's 20.
Those who are sinning rebuke in the presence of all, that the rest may also fear. So what's the context?
Okay, rebuking the elders that are sinning in front of the congregation, presence of all, right?
Yes.
The rest may fear. So is that the rest of the members, the rest of the elders?
All right, the context, yes, you have something?
Go ahead, yeah, I do.
Go ahead.
Well, along that line, again, let's remember elders, plural.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that serving as an elder for a long, long time is being with fellow elders and always pointing out, hey, if you see something that I'm doing wrong or you think that may be wrong, you know, we need to take care of it here. So you look to your fellow elders for support and for those types of things, so it does not happen. So I think that's so important. Again, God's great plan of elders and to deal with those types of things. And if I'm doing something wrong, you tell me, and then we'll deal with it.
That's right. Now, what I was about to say, that is the context of that passage. Okay? Elders are to be looking after one another, heading off anything or mistake they may have before it gets really, really bad, you know? I have found that a little leaven leavens the whole lump, you know? And it's best to get the leaven out as quickly as possible so it won't become a lump, okay? Festered lump. All right, what thoughts do you have? All right, calling for the elders. When should we call for the elders? Well, we need to call the elders in a time of illness and distress. James 5 says, any of you are sick, call for whom? The elders. Get somebody that's sick, listen, you should call the elders. That's part of their responsibility, is to help and pray for those who are sick, you know. Sometimes the elders are the last ones to know, unfortunately. But if I'm reading that passage correctly, you need to call the elders when sickness does arrive. Surgeries, you need to call the elders. Let them know, hey, somebody's having surgery on such and such day. And you don't get the information to the elders, it's hard for them to do what they need to do. So I encourage you this. If you know if somebody's sick, call the elders. If you can't get a hold of elders, call the church office. Call Amy. Send her an email. She puts it out just like that. Quickly. I mean, if you don't know about it, it's because you're not reading your email. Right? And we have things up here. We have the bulletin. We have the call tree, whatever you call that thing, calling post. That goes out pretty well, at least once or twice a week. About something that does come up. So we need to know, and so we need to communicate about what you know, that we can do something about it.
You know, I get a lot of information from people directly emailing me, but also Barbara Tittle's really good about sending me the PowerPoint that goes up before the lesson.
Oh, good.
Yeah, we all, and Chrissy's good, we all three communicate.
That's right. Chrissy, I forgot. Sorry, Chrissy.
It's fine. So we get, that way tomorrow, we all have a different venue of getting information out.
But it's still communicating
Right.
to the congregation about what's going on and what we need to know. And that's very, 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 very important in the church. There you go. Information task force. That's good. Okay, call the elders when you move into a new community. You know what happens to a lot of people? They can be real faithful to their congregation and they move to another town and sometimes never go back to the church door. Well, it's not like my home. That's what I used to do over there, you know. Every congregation does things differently. But it's best as soon as you come into the community, get a hold of the church, get a hold of the elders and let them know I'm in the community and I'm here to serve and to help and do what I can. Somebody had their hand up. Yes, ma'am.
When I travel, I try to always look up a congregation near where I am, if I'm gonna be there over a Sunday or Wednesday night even, and see if I can attend. And sometimes I've been led astray, maybe a church had been a body of Christ, but it got sold to a different denomination. Things like that have happened to me, but, always, yeah, the website really helped. New technology really helped in that case.
Does website does a good job. Okay, so what else we have here? Call for the elders. Whoops. Call for the elders when you have family problems. That could be marriage. It could be children. It could be other personal or physical things that you may need in an emergency of something of this sort. The elders there are to try to help if they possibly can. Okay, ma'am? Addiction. That's right. That's one of the probably hardest things to address among people. I've done it for several years, and it grows weary and well-doing. I mean, really, because usually it's a stuck record, number one, and number two, it's they really don't want to do anything, they just want to complain.
And often when you're dealing with that, you're dealing with domestic violence of some sort.
So that's right, that's part of it, that's correct. All right, class, thank you very much. Thank you, sir.